The leader of Hamas has arrived in Cairo for talks with Egyptian officials amid hopes that Israel and the militant group may be inching closer to another truce in the Gaza Strip. Now, according to reports, Ismail Haniyeh will be meeting with Egypt's spy chief to discuss stopping the aggression in the besieged enclave and an agreement for the release of prisoners. Tel Aviv has signalled its willingness for another truce with the group. The pause in November lasted just a week and saw Hamas set free 105 captives, while Israel released 240 Palestinian prisoners. More than 100 hostages are still being held in Gaza. And meanwhile, the IDF claims that it has struck more than 300 targets around the enclave in the last 24 hours. Israeli forces say troops raided Hamas command and control centres in Khan Younis. That's a city in southern Gaza, which was once deemed a safe zone, but has seen heavy fighting in recent days. Residents there have reported gun battles in the centre and eastern districts. Survivors picked through the rubble of their homes, while the injured were rushed to Nasser Hospital. The Gaza Health Ministry says that nearly 20,000 people have been killed since the start of this war. A refugee camp in Rafah was also hit by an airstrike, killing at least one person. Thousands of refugees have fled to the city following instructions from the IDF. Aid agencies warned that ongoing shelling is making aid deliveries into Gaza increasingly difficult.
ايش اقول كلهم شايفين كيف المخيم شايفين كيف المخيم ايش اقول دارنا كلها وين بدنا نروح انا واولادي وصغاري وين حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل.
For more, Trent Murray joins us. He's live for us from Tel Aviv. Trent, there have been reports on what the second humanitarian pause in Gaza might look like. Can you tell us what you've heard so far?
Yeah, Dawn, that's right. I mean, we understand that the talks are happening, which I think at the very least suggests that there could be some positive movement. But I guess we also have to express some caution, just given how fragile the situation is. What we are understanding and learning is that the Israelis are asking that as part of a truce and a negotiation on hostages, that Hamas releases women and also infirm men. We saw a video released last night by one of the militant groups, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, showing three Israeli men. They were all aged in their early 80s or late 70s. And it's those types of hostages Israel is quite desperate to get home. Ismail Haniyeh is currently in Egypt. As you mentioned, he flew there from Doha after having meetings with the Iranian foreign minister, talking to Egyptian officials. And those discussions align with separate meetings that we understand have taken place in the last 72 hours between the head of Israel's spy agency and a mediator from Qatar. So, look, still very early days, but we do know that pressure is building on Benjamin Netanyahu. He has met with families of some of those hostages in recent days. And one of the messages he's getting from some of the families, not all, and I want to stress that, but some of them, is that they just don't think the military option is working here, and they are really putting pressure on to try and find a diplomatic solution to get their loved ones home.
At the same time, Trent, UN officials, well, they're voicing more anger and disbelief as well at the increased Israeli attacks on and around hospitals across Gaza. What's the situation like now for health facilities that are trying to operate in the enclave?
Look, incredibly difficult circumstances. There is no doubt about that. And we know that health facilities are finding themselves in the middle of those firefights between Hamas fighters and members of the IDF. The challenge is, according to the Israelis, their claims are that health facilities are being used by Hamas's control and command centres. They release evidence of that, in their view, showing videos of weapons and ammunition being stored at hospitals and the like. But we do know that those hospitals are, of course, also treating patients. So regardless of whether they are being used or not, again, civilians are finding themselves in the crossfire. Now, we know the UAE has set up a field hospital in recent weeks. That has been commended by the Israeli authorities. They do acknowledge that the situation on the ground is difficult, but it's been difficult today as well to get information out, Dawn, because there's been another communications blackout across the Strip with internet and phone services down for several hours. UNICEF also warning about the situation regarding water specifically. They say the human needs around 3 litres of water a day to survive. They say the large majority of Palestinians in Gaza are only receiving half of that. And I'll just mention briefly, I know a lot of the focus on Gaza, but we do also have to keep an eye on the border with Lebanon. There's been more skirmishes up there today, and we've heard that the Israeli Air Force actually launched strikes on Hezbollah targets, strikes in order to try and hit what they say are terrorist cells there. So tensions on that border simmering as well. Preemptive strikes, I should say. That's what I was trying to suggest. Preemptive strikes, which is quite unusual for the IAF. Normally they respond to artillery fire from Hezbollah, but today they decided to preemptively launch their own strikes.
That is an unusual development. Trent, thank you very much for that. Trent Murray there, reporting for us live in Tel Aviv.